China didn't grow because it was free. It grew because it was controlled. China lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty, but it also locked its economy into a system that cannot easily change. To understand China's future, you must understand how it began. China's modern economic mindset was shaped by survival, not comfort. When the contemporary system began forming, the country faced extreme poverty, population pressure, and instability. Economic thinking centered on control, coordination, and endurance rather than individual prosperity. Preventing collapse, famine, and fragmentation across a vast territory became the overriding priority. Unlike systems built around personal opportunity, China's economy treated stability as its primary resource. Growth functioned as a tool, not a goal, guiding every decision. The state positioned itself as organizer of labor, capital, and production to avoid chaos. Economic freedom was viewed as risk, not automatic benefit, reinforcing discipline. This mindset produced scale, predictability, and centralized discipline. Wages, consumption, and mobility remained secondary to cohesion. The system absorbed pressure, prioritized endurance, and minimized disruption. From the beginning, China's economic DNA favored resilience over flexibility. That foundation explains later choices emphasizing control, capacity, and survival above comfort, mobility, or satisfaction. Control became China's core economic strategy. Disorder was the greatest threat. The state directed resources, labor flows, and industrial priorities to maintain stability across the nation. Markets existed, but within strict boundaries. Decentralized wage bargaining, uncontrolled migration, or rapid consumption growth could destabilize production and employment, threatening the fragile system during transformation. By regulating income growth and cost structures, authorities ensured predictable output and export competitiveness. Coordination was prioritized over negotiation, reinforcing discipline and large-scale operational efficiency. Workers were integrated into production systems designed for scale, not personal advancement. Urbanization was managed carefully, preventing sudden pressure on housing, services, or essential infrastructure. Consumption was restrained to fund reinvestment into industry and infrastructure. The strategy minimized volatility, suppressed comfort, and created a predictable, continuous machine optimized for national priorities. Control allowed China to mobilize resources rapidly, expand production, and maintain order. Wage-driven inflation or fragmentation was avoided, reinforcing the long-term stability-focused economic approach. In China, labor was a national input, not a bargaining force. Employment aimed for absorption and productivity stability rather than personal empowerment or immediate income growth. The system employed millions while keeping costs stable. Wages reflected competitiveness, not productivity gains, enabling factories to operate continuously and exports to scale efficiently. Rural-to-urban migration supplied labor without full urban benefits, preventing rapid wage escalation. Housing, education, and healthcare were managed to avoid inflation and maintain systemic control. Workers gained stability but limited leverage. Productivity improvements were reinvested into industrial capacity instead of households, ensuring long-term national growth while delaying personal wealth accumulation. Labor flexibility served state goals. Industrial output surged while consumption remained restrained. The system minimized shocks to production but restricted rapid improvement in living standards for households. Understanding labor as a national input explains why wage growth lagged expansion and social mobility remained controlled, preserving stability over individual economic advancement during China's development trajectory. China accepted a trade-off: national growth first, household comfort later. The system prioritized infrastructure, employment, and industrial dominance over immediate consumer satisfaction or spending freedom. Rising output did not mean higher living standards. Housing, savings, and family support networks absorbed household income, limiting disposable funds and personal economic flexibility. Security came through continuous employment rather than purchasing power. This minimized systemic risk while constraining individual choice, preserving stability during rapid industrialization and urbanization processes. The state tolerated regional and sector inequality to maintain momentum. Urban populations gained more comfort than rural, but overall household relief remained controlled and gradual. Growth was visible, but tension rose as expectations increased. Citizens saw national success without immediate personal benefit, requiring patience and long-term endurance under constrained consumption. This trade-off explains later social pressures, demographic shifts, and debates on rebalancing. China focused on global competitiveness first, delaying widespread comfort for strategic long-term advantage. As China's economy expanded, internal tensions emerged within the controlled system. Productivity rose faster than institutions adjusted, widening the gap between expectations and lived reality. Urban workers sought better housing, education, and healthcare, while rural migrants faced access limits. The hukou system preserved stability but reinforced long-term inequality across populations. Families compensated through high savings, extended support networks, and intergenerational dependence. Consumption remained cautious, reinforcing national savings while suppressing domestic demand growth. Younger generations faced rising living costs without proportional wage acceleration, especially in major cities. Education became competitive, expensive, and essential for social mobility. Social adaptation replaced confrontation. Aspirations adjusted downward rather than systems changing quickly, preserving order while quietly accumulating structural pressure beneath visible stability. Economic success continued, but emotional distance widened between growth and daily life. These tensions signaled system maturity, shifting focus toward balance, inclusion, and sustainability. China's growth depended on external integration. Global markets absorbed output, foreign demand sustained factories, and export earnings fueled reinvestment, linking national expansion directly to external conditions. External shocks transmitted rapidly. Trade tensions, tariffs, or slowed global demand immediately affected employment, production, and fiscal planning, revealing vulnerabilities alongside remarkable growth momentum. The system responded with diversification, regional trade agreements, and domestic substitution. Yet exports remained central, keeping factories occupied and reinvestment flowing while internal consumption lagged. Foreign capital, technology transfer, and supply chains shaped industrial upgrading. Exposure encouraged discipline but limited autonomy. Currency management balanced competitiveness with stability in global markets. The state buffered shocks through credit expansion and fiscal tools. Prolonged dependence constrained internal rebalancing, as domestic consumption could not fully replace export-driven demand. Strategic integration amplified growth but introduced risk. China became a global anchor while its stability depended on international cycles, requiring careful planning and disciplined management for resilience. As growth naturally slowed, transition pressures grew. Excess capacity, debt accumulation, and demographic changes demanded careful adjustment, balancing reform with stability to avoid economic disruption. Policymakers encouraged wage growth cautiously. Rapid increases risked export competitiveness, while housing affordability became essential without triggering asset or credit crises, requiring precise, measured interventions. Technology and innovation were promoted to replace labor-intensive growth. Industrial upgrading aimed to sustain output while freeing labor and easing pressure on cost structures. Social spending expanded slowly to support households, but fiscal discipline remained critical. Incremental policy changes sought stability while addressing mounting citizen expectations and systemic stress. Local governments relied on land and investment-driven revenue. Aging populations increased dependency ratios, narrowing margins and forcing careful planning to maintain continuity during reform. The system shifted from expansion to optimization. Control persisted, but flexibility increased. Reform replaced acceleration, scale remained, and efficiency plus distribution became central guiding principles. China's long-term path is rooted in its economic DNA. Stability, control, and endurance remain central, guiding decisions more than rapid growth or short-term comfort. Growth now prioritizes survivability. Household welfare is addressed gradually, not explosively. Coordination outweighs spontaneity. Policy reflects pacing, deliberate management, and internal logic formed under historical pressure. The state remains central, adapting instead of retreating. External models inform decisions, but are not copied. Continuity defines strategy, balancing national strength with household confidence. If wages, services, and security reconnect sustainably, legitimacy strengthens. Gaps widening create pressure. China's system is designed to bend slowly, avoiding collapse or abrupt liberalization. Understanding this mindset explains seemingly cautious or restrictive policies. The economy advances through calibration, not disruption. National priorities always outweigh individual comfort or immediate gains. China's path: survival first, strength second, comfort last. This hierarchy continues shaping economic outcomes, social adaptation, and policy direction into the foreseeable future, maintaining long-term system resilience.